The Acolyte is Disney's Star Wars latest live-action production on Disney Plus. So let's talk about it. Also, this is a full spoiler review.
Attack me with all your strength.
Yes, yes.
Now, as a story concept of this like murder mystery, Jedi assassin going around killing Jedi and trying to play catch up with her, I don't dislike the concept, and the fact that it's set before the prequels is interesting. During the High Republic, it's not an era that we've really seen in live action before. As for this show in particular, because this show is a very specific story. It's a story about twin sisters. So we first meet May. She's the assassin. She's the dark side user. And so she goes after Carrie-Anne Moss's character pretty quickly in the beginning of the show. Now, part of me likes the fact that it kicks off with sort of a bang, you know, it gets into the action pretty quickly. But I kind of wonder the logic in why she went so openly in direct confrontation with them, with these Jedi. If she's trying to kill them and she's been kind of labeled in the marketing as like an assassin, then why is she going like full on, you know, head to head with them? Especially since I would think she has a disadvantage in combat since she doesn't use a lightsaber. Apparently that's proven wrong. Apparently I'm wrong about that, because in the first 5 minutes, she defeats Carrie-Anne Moss through the use of deception. She like directs her attention at this innocent barkeeper, Master Indara, Carrie-Anne Moss. She intervenes to save them, but it leaves herself vulnerable. And then she gets a blade through the heart, a little tiny dagger through the heart. Obviously, that's a precision kill, and I get it. That makes sense. But all these other characters getting stabbed with lightsabers in the last few years is just dumb. Like, people just don't die in Star. It's becoming like Marvel. Like, people just don't die in Star Wars unless you're a Jedi. I guess only Jedi die now. Like, May just goes up to her and she's like, attack me with all your strength. And Carrie-Anne Moss, who is always really awesome on screen, been a big fan of her since The Matrix. She actually embodies the Jedi like look and feel very well. Not just because she has experience in martial arts and combat, although that does help, but it's weird because like May starts attacking all the people at Indara's table. She just starts wailing on them, and I think she might even kill some of them. Why is Master Indara just sitting back watching this? Like, I think they even cut to her and she's just like in shock. Like, what are you doing? Like, help them out. Unless maybe she's not meeting with them for like friendly reasons. Maybe they're not friends. Maybe they're all scumbags and they deserve it. But we don't know that. You know, martial arts in Star Wars, it feels different. It doesn't necessarily feel out of place, but the problem with adding something like that into Star Wars is that since it's a prequel, it's like, well, what happened to all this? Because you don't really see a lot of hand-to-hand combat like this later in the series. I think that the most reminiscent fighting that I see is like when Obi-Wan is fighting Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. Like they do some hand-to-hand combat there, but it's slow. It's like it's a slugfest. It's not really. It looks like something out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's not super choreographed. It was a pretty cool scene. I mean, I wanted to see that fight extended. I was pretty bummed that they just decided to kill her off so quickly like that. It calls into question why you would make Carrie-Anne Moss such a big part of your marketing. I mean, even if you go to Disney Plus and you look at the main page for The Acolyte, she's right there on the front page. And so far, we've seen her a little bit in a flashback in episode 3. That is a weird marketing choice.
Dumb ways to die.
One of the problems with this show that I've been very disappointed with is the acting. Most of the acting feels very off. The delivery feels very off. Carrie-Anne Moss is pretty good. The guy that plays Master Saul, he is a victim of bad writing because like he flip-flops a lot too. Whoever that Yord guy is, he is the worst character of the show so far. He is an absolute moron.
I will redeem myself.
Even May, I can't take her that seriously, even as like this Jedi assassin, because she has some really clunky dialogue too. Osha is, to me, somewhat likable. I think Amandla Steinberg, I haven't really seen her in many roles before, but she seems actually pretty charming to me on screen. But I think that is undermined by the bad writing and not the greatest performance. But again, I kind of tie that back to the writing because I feel like this is jumping around too quickly. There's not enough proper character development here. You know, there should be some really emotionally impactful moments since all of this revolves around them being sisters and their past together. But so far, there's a big lacking in emotional depth on this show. Like, I know people give the prequels crap for having like wooden acting at times and bad dialogue. It didn't feel all over the place like this, and the dialogue felt a lot more intentional. I don't know. This is like a prequel to the prequels, but it's not as good in that sense. I have to question why this show was greenlit like it was, because there's just some things that don't make sense. It's not only the plot that doesn't make sense, but it's also some of the creative choices. Like, there's not really anything that this show does well. I know that sounds bad, but like, there's just not. The acting is not generally very good. The dialogue is not very good. The writing, script, story, the plot, the cinematography, the music's okay. The visual effects are okay. There's nothing about this show that screams like must-see television. More and more, I feel like Star Wars television is feeling less and less cinematic and more like this episodic content that is not really that captivating and not really all that important to the overall story. I don't see any reason why people couldn't just skip this one, because it doesn't really add anything to the overall story of Star Wars. It doesn't have the kind of gravity, you know, to the story that the films do. And I think that's a big mistake, because to me, Star Wars should always feel epic. And it doesn't mean that it has to be big in scale. This is why I keep talking about Andor so much, because to me, Andor is the perfect example of handling many characters at once and giving all of them really interesting roles and developing them in really captivating ways and writing them really well and acting really well. Andor is such a step up as a show in comparison that I was so disappointed by the first 3 episodes that I had to go back and start watching Andor, because I needed to be reminded of what a good Star Wars show looked like. Why is Yord so suspicious of Osha when he runs into her, even though he seems to know her really well, and he's super pleasant at first, but as soon as she reaches for her little droid, he reaches for his freaking lightsaber. Later, as the show progresses, like, he doesn't like that she's unrestrained. He doesn't like that she's coming with them and all this stuff. He is more suspicious of her than anybody else, but even her former master Saul isn't as suspicious as Yord is. And I'm like, Yord, you're an idiot. Listen to Saul. He knows what he's talking about. You don't. You apparently do not know her like you think. This show is implying that you have some kind of relationship with her in the past that was deep and meaningful, but clearly you don't, because you're very quick to label her as like a potential suspect who really seems like she has done something wrong. Also, why didn't the Jedi simply transport her themselves? Why did they put her on a transport ship that's flown by droids that have the intelligence of a gonk droid? Why is that happening? And so, like, these guys are on this ship and they're being transported as prisoners, but it takes them like 5 seconds to decide, we're gonna break out of this ship. I'm thinking, how did you get captured in the first place? And so she just goes down with the ship and miraculously survives. Also, I thought she was a pilot, maybe. I just assumed she was, because she kind of reminds me of Rey a little bit. Like, she's good with mechanical stuff. She's strong with the Force. Yeah, but the droid that's like guarding him, he's like the most incompetent droid ever. I don't understand. These characters, they are making such illogical decisions. Like, they had her right there. Just take her back with you. It doesn't make any sense. Also, why are the Jedi being portrayed as bad guys? This is a narrative that has been a problem for a while now in this era of Star Wars. For some reason, we seem to be so obsessed with making the Jedi look as bad as they possibly can, because God forbid we should have clear distinctions between good and evil. And I'm okay with there being nuance in some gray areas. Like, I get that. I'm okay with there being anti-heroes and villains that are complex and heroes that are fallen from grace. I'm all for that. It's being beaten to death of this idea of the Jedi just being this very flawed group that we're actually kind of toxic and we're like kidnapping children. Like, please stop with that. Please. Whoever keeps saying that, shut up. They didn't kidnap children, okay? That is what the First Order did. The First Order literally went out and kidnapped children from their parents and then brainwashed them. That is why every time I see a First Order stormtrooper die, I'm like, that sucks for them. Because as far as I can tell, they don't seem to have any choice in the matter. And I still don't understand how Finn just decided he wasn't going to be a stormtrooper anymore. Like, oh, so he grew a conscience and the rest of them didn't. Okay, that makes sense. There's a lot of complaints about that scene where there's fire in space, you know, on the ship. It looks like there's like wind in space. Like it's just like a little campfire going. It doesn't look like it's in space. It takes you out of the moment. Now, I'm okay with there being fire in space to some extent, but it should look or feel different in some way. Aesthetically, it just didn't look right. I love that they titled every planet so we wouldn't get it wrong, and you know, everybody pointing out, oh, it's Coruscant. There's that scene where all the kids are like describing what they feel when they think inside and picture the Force. They always say these generic things in Star Wars now. It's like, I see balance, life, fire, rebirth, death. Like, what does this mean? Like, these are such vague ideas. I feel like I keep saying this over and over again. I'm like, you're just saying words. You're not saying anything. And then at the end, you have this weird monologue by whoever this dark side user is with the Venom mask. And he says this straight, like, I don't know who he's talking to. Is he talking to May? Is he talking to us? Is he just talking to the ocean? I can't tell. His voice projects really loud though, even though she's like 30 feet from him. Steel or laser are no threat to them. I'm pretty sure that May killed Indara with a dagger, which is made from some kind of metal. So, I mean, it's a weapon. Also, I love the obligatory little no one, absolutely no one just ignites his lightsaber for no reason. Why do they do that? Like, he's got a red. It's just so that they can, in case you were wondering, this guy really is evil. He's a really evil dark side user because he's got a red lightsaber. We just wanted you to know that because we don't know anything about subtlety.
Attack me with all your strength.
Lord, pay your clothes up.